Good afternoon. Welcome. How many of you have read the book? So I can let you give the report. Come on. Anybody? Okay. I'm going to give you some what is called in Spanish pinceladas. Okay? Because this is a book that I think you should all read. Why should you read it? Because you lived it. And in this book, there a lot of information goes on about the things that we didn't know that were happening, but were happening, okay, from his story. So welcome, and I hope that you are enthused to read the book after you leave here, okay? All right, the book is We Fed a Nation by Jose Andres, and let me give you a little bit of more information. First of all, I like to share with you that poem. That poem was written by a 14-year-old girl who had never seen a storm. And this was her interpretation of it after it occurred. And she calls it La Danza de María. La tarde está callada. Observo las aves buscar refugio y como una bola de cañón aterrizó. Mientras admiro mi cabellera de agua golpeando la tierra, dejo entonces mis brazos murallas de viento caer. Siento las almas llenas de dolor y tristeza. Las casas que tenían colores brillantes son ahora montañas de pena. Mi cabello tan azul y mojado ahora está seco y blanco. Mi danza antes llena de aire, su furor ha perdido. Mi tierno corazón es un espacio vacío. Lanzo una última mirada antes de la tierra dejar. Dejo tras mi paso llanto, dolor y miseria. Espero que esta isla que dejo atrás pronto se pueda levantar. Yo, María, ya he muerto en el mar. Esto fue la interpretación de una jovencita después de pasar por esa tormenta. ¿Y quién es Jose Andres? And I'll be going back and forth Spanish and English when necessary. Okay, Jose Ramon Andres Puerta is a Spanish-American chef often credited with bringing the small plates dining concept to America. He owns restaurants in Washington, D.C., Los Angeles, Las Vegas, South Beach, Florida, Orlando, New York City, and Frisco, Texas. Born in July 13, 1969, he was 50 years old, in Mieres, Spain. His spouse is Patricia Andres. He got married in 1995. He's founder and co-chairman of World Central Kitchen, a non-government organization, co-founder of Think Food Group. He has received awards, the James Beard Foundation Awards for Outstanding Chef. He was twice named as Time's 100 Most Influential People. And he is author of several cookbooks in English and in Spanish. And of course, the book that we are going to talk about, We Fed an Island. Excuse me. If we're going to look at the preface of the book, it tells us that the story of how a group of chefs, hundreds of thousands, fed hundreds of thousands of Americans after Hurricane Maria and touched the hearts of many more. Chef Jose arrived in Puerto Rico 4 days after the Hurricane Maria had ripped through the island. The economy was destroyed, and for most people, there was no clean water, no food, no power, no gas, and no way to communicate with the outside world. How many of you lived that? Okay, if you were here, you lived it. Andres addressed the humanitarian crisis the only way he knew how. He was a chef. So what was he going to do? He was going to feed the people, one hot meal at a time. He served sancocho with his friends Jose Enrique at Enrique's Ravish restaurant in San Juan, to eventually cooking 100,000 meals a day at more than a dozen kitchens across the island. Andres and his team fed hundreds of thousands of people, including with massive paellas. Anybody tasted the paellas that they were cooking? No. Nobody did, okay? And at the same time, they were also confronting a crisis with deep roots, as well as the broken and wasteful systems that keeps some of the biggest charities, the NGOs, in business. Based on Andres' insights take, as well as the meeting messages and conversations had while in Puerto Rico, we fed an island, describes how a network of community kitchens activated real change and tells an extraordinary story of hope in the face of disaster, both natural and man-made. Beyond that, a portion of the proceeds from this book will be donated to the Chef Relief Network World Central Kitchens for efforts in Puerto Rico and beyond. And right now, after what happened in the Bahamas, they were there. They were there. So, I am going to go through the book and take it chapter by chapter to give you, as I told you before, pinceladas, because I want you to read the book, the whole thing. In the first chapter, Jose Andres, who is no stranger to Puerto Rico, because when he was in the Navy, he had passed by here, right? And then he came back on 2 occasions. First, he worked in La Casona restaurant in Santurce. And later on, he worked in Mi Casa in Dorado del Mar. Okay? Therefore, it is no surprise that the news of Hurricane Maria and its effects on Puerto Rico, as he states, it felt as if destiny was driving me back to the place where it all began. He writes about the lack of knowledge Americans have, including the president, okay, about the history behind Puerto Rico and the United States. And if anybody has lived in the United States, we pretty well know that there's no knowledge. They have to be educated. Jose Andres presents the moment the Hurricane Maria tore through the Caribbean and stops when it arrives in Puerto Rico. This is what he is going to talk about. Keeping track of the news from Puerto Rico, he realizes the devastation of the island, the lack of communication, of supplies of electricity. He realizes that he must get his hands on as much money as possible. Since there were no ATMs working, the banks were closed. Remember, the communication was practically impossible, right? So he communicates with his colleague Nate Mook, who decides to join him, okay? 5 days later, against all odds, because there was transportation was not feasible either, so against all odds he arrives in Puerto Rico with his colleague Nate and realizes what he is in for. He had no idea how terrible it really was. And there's chapter number 1. When we go to chapter number 2, he presents his participation in the earthquake in 2010 in Haiti and the birth of this nonprofit called World Central Kitchen. Okay, that is the organization that he's representing, which he believed would become a model for what could be achieved through the transformation power of food. Okay? He's a chef, so he believes that it's food that is going to change it. He realized that before he could feed the people, he had to understand them, and he had to know what they expect of their food. He teamed with a group of Haitian women who taught him, and this is while he was in Haiti during the earthquake. They taught him that a plate of food is not just a group of ingredients cooked and served together. It is a story of who you are, the source of your pride, the foundation of your family and community. Cooking isn't just nourishing, it's empowering. He continues to write about the aspects of his experience in Haiti and includes then present his participation in Hurricane Sandy in 2012. He ends chapter 2 observing the Southern Baptists and their mobile kitchen on the highway behind the convention center, which is the first thing that he saw that he later thought he could be done throughout the island. Chapter number 3. You've got to read the chapter so you get the whole shebang. Chapter number 3, Discovery. This chapter presents the history about the island from the time of the so-called discovery, where there were the indigenous population, approximately 100,000. Only 4 decades after Columbus arrived on the island, they diminished to 1,500. How did that happen? Supposedly, disease brought by the Spaniards, violence, slavery, and armed conflict. From a total of 100,000 to 1,500. The population was diminished. Jose Andres quickly takes you through the development of Puerto Rico's government and its financial hardships pre-Maria. So in that chapter, you will learn a little about history. After 4 days in the island, connecting with cooks from Puerto Rico and using their kitchens, because since he had been here before, he had friends who had kitchens, okay? They were chefs also. So he was connecting with them to open kitchens in different areas to feed the people. Jose Andres managed to prepare 5,000 meals that were distributed in the metropolitan area. That's where he began. However, his organization, World Central Kitchens, could not handle the size and growth rate of what was being done, okay? You're going to cook for all these people. What happens? You need the ingredients, okay? How do you get the ingredients? You need money. There are no ingredients in Puerto Rico, so they had to be brought, okay? Or you had to go out to the island and see where you could get them. So therefore, his small company could not, didn't have enough money, right, to do this. They had very little cash left, and they needed desperately to get funds if they were to continue feeding the people. He returns to his hotel where he begins to talk. He was staying in a hotel where the FEMA people were and all of those. Remember, they were in another area, okay? Where he begins to talk about what they were doing. He meets with George Hill. Remember that name, George Hill, who becomes interested in what Jose Andres is doing and offers to introduce him to FEMA. All right? Many things are going on during this time, such as President Trump's visit, Mayor Carmen Julian's cry for help, the visit of the reporter Cooper Anderson, and all of these things are there in the news, right? And it's happening at the same time that the people are going hungry because nobody is feeding them. But this gentleman, George Hill, okay, is going to introduce him to FEMA. At the FEMA meeting, Wady Gonzalez, head of FEMA's mass care of in Puerto Rico, started with what sounded like an impossible goal. He said FEMA had identified that 2 million people needed feeding in Puerto Rico. 2 million. 3 meals a day, okay? That was almost 2/3 of the population. Andres considered that the number presented by Gonzalez was correct. That's about the population that we have. 2 million multiplied by 3 meals a day becomes what? 6 million meals a day that were needed to be prepared to feed the people. Andres considered that if he teamed with the Red Cross and the Salvation Army, who was also here, okay, to deliver the food, his kitchens could prepare the food, and they could deliver the food, the sandwiches, and the sancocho, and the rice with chicken that he was preparing, he and his team. The organization had outgrown that central kitchen in Santurce, and Andres had his eye on El Choli, where there was an enormous space where they could cook and prepare the sandwiches. With the cooperation of various influential government relatives, their names are in the book, but you read them, he was able to get permission to move the headquarters to El Choli. El Choli, you know, Choliseo is very big, has a very big kitchen, and they could now produce 20,000 meals. They went from San Juan, they added Cataño and Ponce on the list of the people they were serving. This experience made Andres realize that with or without FEMA, a contract from FEMA, they could not stop. He called Ramon Leal to organize a meeting at the hotel with the local business leaders. Okay, things weren't going with FEMA, so he's trying to find another way of getting finance. The turnout at the hotel was impressive. Even the Red Cross showed up. I told them about our plan to feed as many people as possible and asked them to prioritize donations of food if they can afford cash. That was awesome. I needed their support. I needed huge amounts of aluminum trays. Rafael O'Farrell, a retired U.S. brigadier who was now general manager of Date Paper Company in Puerto Rico, took our plan seriously, and we would never run out of trays in the weeks and months ahead, as we sent tens of thousands of trays packed with food across the island. That night, as I looked up at the stars, I began to cry. And yes, there are many emotional times in the book. Chapter 5, The Arena. Being able to have the headquarters of El Choli was like being at a 5-star facility. How many of you have been at a 5-star facility? When you look for a hotel, what do you look for? First, second, third, right? Well, it was like being where they were, it became like a 5-star facility. They would be able to increase the amount of meals they were serving. They placed pictures of the various kitchens where they had been serving and delivering meals. This served as promotion of their work. Finally, FEMA called to give them a notice to proceed to cook 20,000 meals a day for 7 days at a price of $6 to $8. A meal depending on the ingredients. Andres states that as a non-profit organization, they had no interest in making a profit. Our sense of profit was feeding the people. FEMA's money was going to cover the cost and beyond. Anything left over would be used in feeding more people regardless of the number of meals in the contract. However, this FEMA didn't like. If FEMA said that it was supposed to be 20,000, they couldn't do other things with the rest of the money. Okay? Just to put that there so you can look at it later. Okay. The meals increased to 50,000. In 2 days, with the intention of increasing to 100,000 to deliver to kitchens they had already identified in Mayagüez, Aguadilla, Manatí, Ponce, Guayama, and Fajardo, from which they would go to Vieques and Culebra. Okay? This chapter presents all the different contracts that FEMA had, including contracts by PREPA, whitefish, among many others. This is the chapter. Have you heard about the good, the bad, and the ugly? Anybody? That was a movie. Yeah, a movie long ago. Well, in this particular book, we have the good, we have the bad, and we have the unethical. And this is where the unethical comes in. All of these contracts that you have probably read about, you know, in the papers, but a lot of nitty-gritty as to how things went on in this area, this chapter. Andres then acquired a map of the island where he identified the kitchens that were available in public schools so that he could get those kitchens to cook foods for their particular communities. So he's got practically a large part of the island where he is delivering. Ready to eat, chapter 6. In this chapter, Andres encounters his competitions. Meals ready to eat, MREs. Anybody? Anybody? You know what they are, right? They're prepared by who? The military prepares them, right? They are very high in sodium. They're not very healthy. Not the same as an MRE, as getting a plate of nice warm food, okay? However, FEMA was buying these packets from the Pentagon at a price of $9.91. They were paying Andres $6 to $8, but here they're paying $9.91. And they were distributing them throughout the island. These packets are easy to transport because they don't spoil. It's a little packet, all right? They don't spill. The solution to this competition for Andres was to continue making his ham and cheese sandwiches that were prepared, and then, you know, they didn't need a lot of packing or anything. All right? A meeting was called by FEMA, and all the different agencies reported on what they had been doing. How many people they have been serving, what they have been sending. The Red Cross indicated, well, somewhere that they were sending cans of beans and they were sending rice. But who's going to cook it? We have no water. We have no electricity. Are we going to eat them raw? Okay, so that, even though they said we gave so much, but that wasn't working because the people did not have a way of preparing that food. So, Chefs of Puerto Rico reported on all that they were able to do. Having the greatest numbers, they were feeding more people than anybody else. Then he went to Utuado. As he landed in Utuado, while overflying the city in a helicopter and looking at the homes with no roofs, people who had no water, no electricity, no money, and who has just had, and who have not had a hot meal. That's what it should be. He received an email while he was there from FEMA rejecting his offer to cook the 20,000 meals a day that he was suggesting. He was frustrated with the news, and once again, an emotional part, he begins to cry. Nevertheless, he went to his friends and he asked them to help rake up meals for Utuado, and so it was that hot meals began to reach the mountains of Puerto Rico after Maria. I went to Utuado because I went with a group of people. You would never believe what we saw in Utuado. We were lucky to get to take our supplies, leave the supplies, and get back alive. Because the road, because the holes, and you have one mountain here and there, you know, you can go forever. It was an experience, so I can relate to this information about Utuado, but the meals did get there, and the people did begin to eat hot food. Chapter 7, Seeing Red. in this chapter, Jose Andres struggles trying to get a contract with FEMA again, or with the American Red Cross. He explains the complexity of the American Red Cross and FEMA's reluctance to work with him. His concern is not that he gets the contract, but that the people are fed. He considers it is his time to begin to decrease his operations in the island, since nothing is really, seems like it's going to happen. Transitions. On the 22nd day, they reach their goal. They prepare the 1 millionth meal. They were cooking out of 13 locations across the island, all over the island. This man went all over the island. And there was clearly a demand for their hot food and sandwiches. FEMA finally tells Jose Andres to cease all production as soon as the contract was fulfilled. That's it. Not a penny more. Jose Andres finds out that FEMA was writing huge contracts for people with no experience, no capacity to deliver meals, and a track record of failure, only to cause him to become more upset of what is going on. Jose Andres decides to visit all his kitchens and make sure everything is working well, even though he knows he is leaving because they are not working with him. He's trying once again to get a contract with FEMA. He doesn't give up. He continues. He takes supplies to the mountains of Utuado. He takes medicines to the other side of the island. He even took all types of lamps and things that people were needing. By Thanksgiving, they prepared 3 million meals. They had prepared 3 million meals. So he wanted 1 million, and they prepared up to 3 million meals. Before preparing Thanksgiving dinner as a goodbye for all the people, the volunteers that work with him, about 1,000, he took a drive to see the hardest hit areas of the island. When he was asked, "Why did you come to Puerto Rico?" he answered, "I don't know. I didn't have a plan. My idea was just to feed the people." And perhaps you hear many things about, those are the references. Perhaps you hear many things about Jose Andres and his kitchen and his company. And many people say, "Oh, he took a lot of money with him." I don't know, maybe he did, maybe he took money. But from what I get, he worked for it. He worked. Not only did he work, he fed the people, which was not being done. Okay? In many areas, people were going hungry. They didn't have. They went to places where when they got there, they went to the plaza, they set up the tables, and then all of a sudden, there were thousands of people coming. And as when you read the book, you'll see all this. They didn't even move. They took the plate, and right there they began to eat because the people were hungry. Many of you probably didn't go through any of that, okay? Many of you were probably in an area where you were safe, and even though Maria was terrible, you didn't suffer any of this. But yes, many people in our island did. And the book is going to help you understand all the unethical things that went on. For example, the man who told him, "I will introduce you to FEMA." What did he do later on? "I want $1 for every plate." It wasn't, "I'm going to introduce you because I know we're going to help the people." I want my share. Okay? And so like that, so many contracts that were going on that some of them you probably, is this ethical? Heavens no. This is so unethical. And we know from everything that we have read and we have seen later on, all the things that were going on that are so unethical. I advise you to read the book. Why? Because it happened in your time. Because your children need to know. Because your grandchildren need to know. You need to tell them about it, okay? Who knows? Let's hope to God that we don't get another one like that. But what if, okay, what if you should be able to tell your grandchildren, your children, of what occurred during your lifetime so that they can learn how to handle this. Do you have any questions? Open for questions. Open for comments. You want to share anything? I know some of you have read the book. Share. Willing to share? Yes.
First of all, I would like to congratulate you on such an excellent book review on a text that I like very, very much. And because my English is not as beautiful as yours, I'm going to continue in Spanish. Yo pienso que esta reseña del libro, que ya les ha dado solamente un bocadillo para que saboreen, es un texto que los estudiantes de administración de empresas debieran conocer y tener en su biblioteca para la posteridad.
Exacto.
Ustedes son la generación que vivió María en su casa y en la universidad, muchos de ustedes. Además son la generación del verano del 2019.
Wow.
Ustedes van a hablar como los viejitos hablan de Santiago y de San Felipe y de los huracanes, así van a hablar ustedes dentro de varias décadas. En términos de lo que mi colega ha reseñado muy bien y les ha dejado así con el gustito, ahí van a encontrar en todas las disciplinas que enseñamos aquí desde la contabilidad, la sinergia, el trabajo en equipo ineficiente, el trabajo en equipo eficiente, como dice José Andrés, que a veces un trato en una época de crisis sencillamente darse la mano, porque si vamos a esperar por la burocracia, por firmar papeles, la gente se queda sin comer. Se demuestra con datos la ineficiencia del gobierno, eso es bien importante, los que ustedes se vayan a gerenciar luego empresas con fines de lucro o sin fines de lucro. El escamoteo que hubo, el respeto a la cultura, inteligencia cultural,
sí.
Porque él estaba pendiente de la gastronomía, de lo que había aprendido
lo que
en
se come.
Yo tengo conocidos en Orocovi que le llevaban unas cajitas, no eran de Andrés, eran del gobierno, con papas fritas, gummy bears, juguitos, una comida que sencillamente no alimentaba y además los dejaba con mayor sed. Así que yo creo que el libro que reseñó Aida es un libro sobre la búsqueda de soluciones, es un testimonio de alguien que actuó, pero algo que es bien interesante que Aida le señaló es que llevó un helicóptero usado, pero no lo llevó el gobierno. El empresario de la Goya, humano, amigo de él, le presta, le dice yo te llevo. O sea que hay una participación de empresarios, de gente privada con dinero, que no estaba buscando pauta y que participó y le dijo yo te lo presto porque el gobierno no llegó a Utuado no había llegado nadie, llega él y a él lo critican, él ya es súper millonario.
Todos los restaurantes que tiene, hombre.
Y si sacó algo pues lo hizo bien porque muchos se perdimos en el transcurso, así que a mí me parece fundamental que también este tipo de texto que tiene que ver con la sinergia, trabajo en equipo, el trabajo ético, el gerenciar bien y manejar bien el dinero, sensibilice a los estudiantes de administración de empresas. Perdonen mi entusiasmo.
¿Comunicación?
No, la comunicación.
La comunicación en crisis, eso fue ahí, como que increíble, no sabían cómo bregar con una crisis, ¿no? Y se les fue verdaderamente la situación de las manos. Y se puede ver, a través del texto ustedes van a poder identificar y ver todo eso. Ahora, no se le puede decir todo, tienen que leer.
Sí, para que lo saboreen.
Pero que en qué momento histórico tantos casos de ética y tantas faltas de
Exacto. Tú miras eso. Está por ahí, por donde quiera. Y sí. Sí, increíble. Hay quienes se aprovechan. Quien viene a aprovecharse. Exacto, exacto. Y como le digo, o sea, él para venir acá, él hasta le cogió la TH de la esposa y le dijo, necesito todo el dinero que tenga, porque se tenía que traer. Se trajo lo de él y lo de la esposa. Todo el dinero, le vació la ATH para poder venir a Puerto Rico. Y llegar aquí no era fácil, porque no había transportación. Él tuvo que viajar de un sitio a otro, a otro, a otro, a otro para poder llegar. O sea, ¿sí? Que no fue fácil. O sea que él puso todo su pecunio, ¿verdad? En tratar de ayudar. Que si después a él FEMA le dio un contrato y sacó algo, pues más que merecido, según mi criterio. Así es que eso es así. Vamos a ver, digan jóvenes, hablen. ¿Cuántos se van a comprar el libro? Oh. Pues miren, cójanlo prestado, sáquenlo de la biblioteca, bájenlo en YouTube, donde quiera lo encuentran, en Amazon. Búsquenlo, vale la pena, es parte de su historia. Y es una historia importantísima. Miren, verano 2019. Eso es.
Y participantes muy